Home buyers, are you discouraged that your offers are not being accepted? I'm with you. I love representing my buyers, and it's been very challenging for me as well because you have to be creative and think outside of the box to get your offers accepted in this seller's market. In this video, I will be sharing with you my 7 tips on how to get your offers accepted in this multiple offer situation that we're all experiencing right now. Konnichiwa, my name is Kaori Nagao, your Las Vegas lifestyle specialist. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear from you. So let's jump right into this video. Tip number 1, understanding the seller's motivation and what's important for them is extremely important in a multiple offer situation. My first question to the listing agent is to find out why the seller is selling their house. Are they moving up to a bigger home? Are they relocating? Is it an investment property? Why are they selling? And understanding that motivation is the first question. Once this information is obtained, the purchase offer can be structured in a way that is more appealing to a seller. Do they want a quick closing? Do they need some time to lease back? Is the seller doing a 1031 exchange where they need more time for closing? Maybe they need more than 30 days, they need 45 days. Getting those questions answered is key. Another question I asked to the listing agent is, what's important to the seller? Everyone has different importance, in this transaction, and so it's really important to find out the what. It might be flexibility because they need a lease back since they're going to be, they have to identify and then purchase a new home, and obviously that takes time. It might be the highest price. It might be furniture. Perhaps the seller is relocating to another state and doesn't care much about the furniture and want to include that in the transaction. I've done that recently with a 1031 exchange investor client who wanted to buy the house and rent it out as soon as possible once it closed, so it worked out really, really well for both parties. These are the things that are important and evaluated when a seller looks at a multiple offer situation. Tip number 2, over-communicating with the listing agent. From the time of the showing to submitting an offer, I am in constant communication with the listing agent. If my buyers are even slightly interested in submitting an offer, I will let the listing agent know so that we have a conversation about the current offers on the table and the timeline of when the seller is making a decision. Is the seller making a decision as soon as each offer come in? Or is the seller waiting for multiple offers to come in and making a decision on a certain day during the week? A lot of sellers usually have, they have a lot of showings over the weekend, so they would maybe wait until Monday or Tuesday to wait for all the offers to come in to make a decision. Other questions I asked the listing agent. Do you have any offers on the table? Are you able to share them with me? Do you have offers above list price? Do you have any cash offers? Or any offers waiving contingencies? And I'll talk about this a little bit more. Contingencies include inspection, appraisal. Are these contingencies being waived? And what does that mean for the seller? Understanding the landscape of the current offers and the seller's decision-making timeline will help you position your offer better. And in order to make your offer stand out, these are key questions to ask. Tip number 3, this is my favorite, connecting with the listing agent. So I just talked about over-communicating with the listing agent. Connecting with the listing agent is my tip number 3. And what does that mean? I always look for ways to connect with the listing agent. I would add them on the social media platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn to see if we have any mutual contacts. If they are really active like I am on Instagram, I would like and comment on their recent posts. If they have a post on a specific listing that we have submitted an offer for, I would actually comment, and do like the heart emoji, just to let them know that, I'm seeing their social media, that I'm engaging with them, that I'm interested in these posts. Engage with them. Let them know that you have a presence on social media and that you want to connect with them. And to be honest with you, those emoji hearts have worked for me in the past. I was able to get my client's offer accepted because of the over communication and the connection that I wanted to make with the listing agent. And again, I think social media gives a different relationship and connectivity with people. And, especially with stories, you can see what they're doing. You can see the personal side of them. And let's say it's another, a realtor that has kids like me. Instant connection there. And if I see a story about their kids doing an activity like gymnastics that my daughter does, That's a conversation, a topic that you could talk about. So those are the key things that I look for and connect with, because you guys, you want to be best friends with all these listing agents, and you want to connect with them on any level you can. And especially if you have mutual friends or if you have a mutual interest, that's instant connection that goes a long way. Sharing information about your buyers may also help you connect with these listing agents. For example, I just went into escrow for a first-time home buyer that just recently had a baby boy. So in the offer, I shared with the listing agent a photo of the family with their baby boy. And again, connection. This listing agent is also a mother, so she loved seeing that picture. She was really excited to share that picture with the seller. And the seller was more inclined to work with a first-time home buyer than an investor who is obviously looking at their listing for an investment purpose. Tip number 4, and I touch on this, but this is having fewer contingencies. In a multiple offer situation, waiving or not including as many contingencies can make one offer more desirable than the next. While I don't recommend waiving any appraisal contingencies, I have done it before, and in that situation, what I do is I would put a cap for the appraisal gap. So what does that mean to waive an appraisal? When your buyer is financing for a home, the lender orders a third party to appraise the house, and they use the most recent sold comps to come up with that number. For example, your buyer makes an offer on a house for $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $475,000. There's a $25,000 difference, and this is called the appraisal gap, which the buyer will have to come out of their pocket and pay in cash. The lender is only able to cover what the appraised amount is. So if you waive the appraisal contingency, that means that the buyer will have to cover that gap and whatever that amount is. So again, if it's a small gap, they might be comfortable covering that. But what if it's a big gap? And I've actually seen personally on my transactions appraisal gaps over $100,000. And it may sound crazy, but it's because the appraisers cannot keep up with the high demand and the fast transactions that's currently happening in this Las Vegas market. So what happens when your buyers are not able to cover the gap? Of course, the deal does not go through. And as your buyer's agent, I want to protect the buyer's interest, and we want to make sure we cover and make sure that this transaction goes through. So in this particular case, I don't recommend waiving the appraisal gap, but putting a cap on the appraisal gap. So let's say that appraisal gap maximum is $10,000 or $15,000. Then we'll put that in writing and make sure that both parties understand that that's only the maximum amount that my buyers are able and interested in covering in the event that there is an appraisal gap. This is not happening in the Las Vegas market, but I have heard from agents in other states that some are waiving home inspections as one of the contingencies. I personally do not recommend it because, again, you can't see a lot of the things that are wrong with the house until you have a professional home inspector. And again, if you haven't seen my video, I do a video on home inspection and I interview one of our preferred home inspectors, Phil Whalen from Win Inspection. So make sure you check out that video, card information up here, because home inspection is such a key process during the due diligence period. Tip number 5, making a large deposit. A buyer who is buying a home must provide with an accepted purchase offer a deposit known as the earnest money deposit, or we call it like a good faith deposit. The amount of the deposit is variable and it's usually called out in the MLS. So let's say, for example, it's $5,000 or $10,000. But in order to show that your buyer is very serious and motivated, you might want to put a slightly bigger earnest money deposit to let them know that you are indeed serious and interested in moving forward with this transaction. Tip number 6, making a larger down payment. Putting a large percentage down towards the house can create an advantage for a buyer in a multiple offer situation. It shows a seller that the buyer has been disciplined to save a large sum of money to put towards the house, which can then indicate the strength of that buyer. A large down payment also can help things move along quicker at the buyer's lender and increase the likelihood of a mortgage commitment being issued. So again, these are great tips to use. Again, showing the seriousness of your buyers goes a long way to the seller. And last but not least, tip number 7, get pre-approved, not pre-qualified. They are two different things, guys. So I'll explain. A pre-qualification is when a lender looks at a buyer's overall financial picture based on what the buyer tells them. In most cases, they will also look at the buyer's credit information to make sure that their credit scores are in line with the current mortgage guidelines. Then the lender will issue a pre-qualification letter subject to verification of the information that you provide once you apply for your mortgage. Now, a pre-approval, on the other hand, is typically a little more involved, and it's more desirable because it shows that the buyer is pre-approved. Getting a pre-approval includes a lender pulling a fact data, including credit reports, collecting pay stubs, bank statements, W-2s, and your tax returns. Most pre-approvals are as good as a mortgage commitment and are generally only subject to a bank appraisal being done on the subject property. A lot of showings recently, especially in the luxury market, they require a pre-approval letter or a proof of funds even before I could do a showing. And of course, when you're submitting an offer, we usually, say that pre-approval letter, would come within 2 or 3 business days. Now it's actually required to submit the offer with the pre-approval letter along with the offer. So again, you need to have those, done first before you start searching your home. And I always recommend my buyers and ask them, one of my first questions I ask them is, are you pre-approved? Please send me a copy of your pre-approval letter. Oh, you have not done that process yet? Great, no problem. I have a great local lender I could connect you with to go through that pre-approval process, so I have that letter in my hands when we're ready to submit an offer and find your dream house. Thank you again for watching. What did y'all think about my tips? I would love to hear from you. If you have any further tips that you've maybe personally experienced, please comment below. I'm constantly learning, and I'm always looking for creative ways to make my buyer's offers stand out. So I would love to hear from you. Again, this is Kaori Nagao, your Las Vegas lifestyle specialist. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on the next one.